Well, my name is John Dreu. Currently, I'm a co-owner and responsible for strategic development at Elrad International. We have 1,700 people working for us in 4 locations in Slovenia, where the headquarters is, where we also have development, electronics development and mechanical development. We have a site in Serbia, where we only do production. We have a site in China where we also do mechanical development, plastic injection, and tool making. And we currently have just opened a new site where we will do, at first only production, but later also some development in Mexico. My journey, basically, I was in software engineering. When I started my journey, I went into the access control and time and attendance many years ago. At that point, that was very high tech. We were basically, our company was pivotal when it came to face recognition, fingerprint, and things that are common now these days, RFID. And I'm talking now early 80s. That company was acquired by a huge American company. At that time, we were the #1 for security and time and attendance in Europe. 36% of the top 200 companies in Europe had our systems. And we also did very high-end stuff at nuclear plants and military and all that stuff. After a couple of years where I was introduced to the, let's say, the very interesting field of mechanics at this American corporation, I became their vice president, or their president Europe, and later on vice president global new product development. But I decided to stop with, let's say, the big corporate stuff, and decided to, I was invited by old partners in my businesses to join Elrad, which I did in 2007, which was not the best moment, because then we had another crisis coming up. But anyway, I learned that any crisis is a good thing actually to start a business, because if you survive there, you can survive anything. And as I said, today we do around 150, 160 million US dollars in sales, and yeah, we're quite happy to do so. And of course, we also have we make about 700 products, but more and more also products in the IoT space.
Great, thank you, John. You know, and I think as somebody who helps manage a factory and looks for business development also within a factory, the IoT market is one of those where people are building kind of products from scratch. But there's also a lot of kind of learnings along the way, because many of those companies are doing stuff for the first time. And if a factory making things in the tens of thousands or higher and higher for a product, there's then this gap in between. Is there anything that you'd like to kind of say to those companies that are in IoT who at the moment are making, say, a couple of hundred and are ready to take a step towards more mass manufacture, maybe investing in tooling for the first time? Is there anything you'd kind of like to?
Oh yeah, because one of the things that is part of my strategic work is to look for companies that we can help, that in our eyes could have a bright future. And what I see is many big companies are struggling with IoT. They don't get the concept. They forget that IoT is not only a product, it's also services. You need so many disciplines that work together, that even for a big company, it's very hard to bring all those disciplines together. I see a lot of small companies coming up in the IoT space. Why? Because they're fast, they're flexible, and they have enough knowledge about new technologies that can help them to, let's say, change the world. And they don't have the big corporation, let's say, slowing down factor of let's say, first putting everything in plans, and they can move quickly. That's also their let's say, their problem many times. Many of these smaller companies have no clue on what it means to go in the trajectory between lab, working on the bench, and we have two customers that are very enthusiastic to bringing a product into a serial production, where customers that you don't know anymore can work with it and don't, let's say, blow over your whole organization with problems, quality problems, operating problems, you name it, all kinds of problems. So my advice to people that want to develop products in the IoT space is less technical, it's more organizational. Because most of these people know their technology. I mean, I talk to them, I can give them advice on using components that are widely available. We can give them a lot of advice on the technicality of it, but where I see the most problems is in the mechanical space. Many of these companies need some sort of a housing or tooling, and they underestimate the mechanics, the mechanical problems where you what you face when you put a piece of electronics into a housing that has to fulfill special needs. So that's an area where they always underestimate the difficulties of it. That's why we also have our mechanical engineers to support customers with the tooling and everything else. But also the certification trajectory of a product is widely underestimated. People think the product is working, so we just go to the certification board and that's it. In 2 weeks it's done. Sometimes this whole trajectory takes longer than development of the whole project. And why? Because it's not well thought out from the beginning, because this is not an area where many electronics engineers have their, let's say, their know-how. And as such, they bring their product to the certification board and it's blown down and it's said, okay, it doesn't work, you figure out how to get it work, because those boards mostly don't give you advice. They just say it's not working according to specs, so go back to your drawing board and make it again. And then they go into the new cycle of sampling and testing, and there's a lot of time lost in that if you don't start with a design and ask at first glance the experts, hey, how can I use it? How close can a Bluetooth chip be to the housing to have non effects for ESD and stuff like that. And the third one is the market. When we decide to help companies, I don't look so much at the product, because I know in the end we will get it right. I now look like what is the plan to go to market with this product? How do they want to set it in the market? Because what many, as I say, young entrepreneurs forget is the most expensive thing is sales. The most problematic thing is to get the attention that you need in the market. Putting something on a crowdfunding site doesn't mean that you have a market. You have some, I would say, people that want to be on the forefront of technology that write in and give you some money, but that's it. So how is your plan to go to market? Who will help you on that? Because trying to sell that on your own is a long and stony road, and that's where I see, many people think I want to be, let's say, the next Zuckerberg or however they call it. But that's not how it works, because these guys have been scrambling around for many, many years before they got that success. And unfortunately, there's no books telling them about all the misses they made in the beginning. And how many people make so many misses they don't exist anymore. So how do you plan to put this product in the market? Where can you launch it? Can you do it side by side with a larger company that has a market for you? And all those things I ask a lot of times. And then I get the feeling, okay, this product could not only actually work, but it could also actually sell. And that's in the end, how you finance your business and have enough cash flow to do other nice stuff and make a second version. That's also a problem. Many times these developers, and I come from the development, I was a software developer at first, and later I developed hardware. Your baby should be so beautiful that everybody thinks it's beautiful, right? The problem, however, is to do that. It takes you so long time that in the end, your investors say, "Hey, we have no money anymore," and you fall off the cliff, basically. And I see that happening a lot of time too. So one of my advices to those companies is make your spec, make it fix, make sure that you know that the customer can work with it. But just like the T-Ford, that was not the final car. Yeah, the final car is not even here now today. Yeah, there's always the next version. So with every input you get from your customer, make sure that you say this is not going to be in the next sample. No, this is going to be in the next version. Yes or no, and the current sample is going to be what we sell. And that all means a lot of preparation, a lot of thinking ahead when you start working on the product. And I see a lot of times that is not happening, and it takes people by surprise. And then, of course, frustration comes in. If you go to, if you work on a tool, nowadays, even if you can have a good service from anybody, not only us, it will take you at least 12 to 16 weeks, period. Now, if you have your little piece of electronics working in the lab and it's all fine and everybody's happy, then I see many times people coming to me and say, yeah, now we need an enclosure, please do that, and when can we have it? Next week? And then they're totally overwhelmed by the fact that it takes 16 weeks if you're lucky, because we have to send out samples, you have to see the flow marks, you have to see the injection points, is that something your customer will accept or not? And then it goes forwards and back, and time gets lost. So those aspects many times make the whole trajectory of from ID to serial production much longer than people think. And I always try to tell in the beginning of a project, try to do things in parallel, because less somebody bothering about already how you want to package this. I had a product that has been sold in the Netherlands, intelligent thermostat, with connections to the outside world and the cloud and you name it. Believe it or not, it took longer to develop the packaging where it goes to the customer than it took to develop the product. And if I tell that to many people in the beginning, they start laughing at me. But many times, when the product is in the market and I ask them again, and they said, oh, yeah, we did underestimate that part. So as I say, from ID to product, to really product, and a product for me is not that it's working in your lab. A product is really produced, put in a customer's location, and you have less than 0.3% returns. Yeah, that's a product. Yeah, that's a long road. Yeah, that's a long road. Yeah.
It is a long road. You're totally right.
Yeah.
So if we take a step back then, and kind of, because you have a very unique perspective, you've been doing stuff for over 20 years. You're a manufacturer with
longer.
With essentially,
unfortunately,
locations on every continent, manufacturing, hundreds of thousands of products annually.
75 million every year pieces of product. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. Yeah.
And you're also seeing IoT kind of come up. You manufacture some IoT, which involves quality control in the factory. You also use IoT for some pallet tracking and various other bits and pieces. So if I ask you the question, what does IoT mean to you? How would you answer that?
For me, IoT is let's say back to almost the originals of the electronics. It sounds a little bit silly, but being as old as I am, you see these waves. There was a time that, in the beginning time of electronics, you had a little device for one task. And then, like in the software industry, devices got more complicated and could do many things at the same time. Take a personal computer as an example, and you could put in software that did so many things at the same time, and then you had the big ERP systems with like SAP, and they could do everything basically at the same time. And then you come to the situation where there's hardly any people that know all these things. So then you get teams of consultants around you that needs to get this going. Now, for me, the IoT is like actually back to the old way where you say, I have one sensor, I have maybe two sensors, and I register something, and I know exactly what I'm doing there. And the good thing about the IoT is because of the costing, because of the let's say the type of industry that you're working, we can do it for a very low price, basically in a very high volume. And that gives you the opportunity to measure, for instance, a temperature or how will I call it, a vibration or a position of something within a very, let's say, cost-effective way. The big difference here is you can organize all the data within the cloud. So you can aggregate that data in a very easy, very fast, and very standardized way. And you buy a temperature sensor from company 1, you buy your vibration sensor from company 2, you buy your your environmental sensor in company 3, and you can all bind them in the same sort of cloud platform. And that gives you just exactly the data you want, not 100,000 types of data you don't want, but just exactly those 3 or 4 that you want to do something with, you can act on in a very cost-effective way. The good thing, what is the big change to the past? For me, IoT has a lot to do with communication. I mean, I've been working with companies that do testing of and you know about it, testing of humidity in the soil. I know these sensors. They've been around for 20, 25 years, but one sensor was costing like 700 euros. And somebody had to go there to collect the data, and then later it was run on an SD card, and lots and lots and lots of stuff there. Today, you can broadcast it through any kinds of means, narrowband IT or LoRa or Bluetooth or you name it. There's many standardized SIG Pro, you name it. And that gives you the opportunity to collect data of really real-time data of a big number of sensors at the same time. And that gives you real information instead of one sensor that is so costly and is somewhere in the middle of a, let's say, a field or in the middle of an ocean or whatever. Yeah. And for me, so the IoT for me is not so much a totally new era. It's for me, it is we're coming back to one sensor or one piece of electronics to do one task and communicating through standardized means into a cloud that gives you a real grip of data that you want to have and not 100 times of data, go in your PC. What you can find all there on data is just enormous. You drown in the data. Yeah, but now you can pick and choose your own data. And if you have worked with that data and you have changed things and you do the fine tuning, then you can take the next step. And you buy some other types of sensors and you hang them into your cloud and you get additional data to the data you already have and understand. So you can build your own infrastructure yourself, step by step, low cost, in my view, compared to in the old days, with standardized type of communication, and that's huge. That's huge, and I personally expect that the IoT industry, as we call it nowadays, that will explode in the next few years. I mean, we talk with large companies, large customers a lot. And you see that having their first IoT type of project immediately sort of launches the need for new things, more information, But what I always say, it's like being in a large corporation where every month or every week your controller comes with such a package of Excel sheets, and it's so much you throw it in the windowsill, and you think, now next week I get the next one, I'll look at it then, you know. So the good thing about this is if you can pinpoint the type of data you want, because you select what type of data you want, and you find the sensor for that. And you bind it in the environment where you already know your data, and then start combining it. And that's a strong thing. That's a strong thing. I see the examples, and I see what people get out of that information. It's huge. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so if I then ask you then about kind of the future of manufacturing, or where you're running a whole factory and you're running multiple factories on multiple continents, how do you see the future of IoT within factory environments?
You know, let's say I see it in different directions. The first thing is the very, I mean that's quite standardized, is the logistics, the whole thing. You want to control your logistic streams of components and half products, not only throughout the logistic chain, but also within your factory. You want to know where your work in progress is, in what state it is. Customers are more and more interested in the delivery time. Yeah, and it is very good if you know exactly where in the process your product is, so you can follow it within the factory. Another thing is, as the electronics gets more, let's say, more problematic when it comes to environmental stuff. I mean, the components get smaller every time. There's sometimes I see boards in our factory and I think there's no component on it, but there are actually. That means that you have to control the environment that you're making these or manufacturing these boards in to a much higher degree. In our new factory in Mexico, for instance, we have also by IoT, we have lots of temperature and humidity sensors everywhere in the factory, because we don't want to have one temperature. We want to know at every location of that factory how the temperature is, because with those very sensitive products that you make, you want to make sure that the whole production process is controlled from a temperature and humidity standpoint of view. So you can actually show the data to your customer and say, listen, our product is being made within the range that we decided to make it within. And then if we ship the product to a customer, we want to make sure that it stays within the limits of vibrations. Some products are used, let's say, for office use only, and they will have never shocks and whatever. So they've been designed for that type of purpose. But it could very well be in your logistics chain that it gets huge shocks on the way there. A pallet is falling off the truck and you name what, and you get problems later on with that product when it's used. You get a warranty request, and then you want to know, you know, at what time is this problem occurred. And if you can control that whole chain from the component coming in to the manufacturing process, from the manufacturing process to the delivery, then you can at least take a lot of risk out of your own business. So for me, that is a typical application of IoT. That's where it starts. But you know, we see other things going on with Corona. Of course, we're working on one of our customers has developed a Corona tracer that you know who has been in contact in the factory with who. Yeah, it's a typical IoT application based on Bluetooth, and that we as a factory can assure that if somebody gets it, we know who was in contact for how long, at what time, within the 2 weeks period. So we don't need to close down the whole factory. Which is good for our customers, but we can only, let's say, quarantine certain production employees and move on with the rest. So also that type of checking will start more and more coming into the factory. So there's a whole lot of things where we didn't think about in the past. We had reserves for quality issues of X% of our sales. Now, if we do a really thorough check through the whole process, I know we can get that down, by a certain percentage. But if you produce like 75 million of electronic products per year, a certain percentage is a lot. Yeah. So that's where IoT, for instance, will help us very quickly.
Great, thank you. And I think that opens people's eyes to kind of what's possible there, and just the efficiency levels that factories already work at, and then how you can kind of take it to the next level, which is what IoT can do a lot. Yeah. Okay, so if I then ask you the question about advice for people getting started. So this is more people who are coming to you, maybe who are large customers who are already making products in the millions, trying to bring out IoT or incorporate IoT into their own product ranges. What advice do you have for those companies kind of getting started with IoT projects for the first time?
From the design standpoint of view, my advice is always use standardized modules, and that will increase your cost. But you will save so much time on the certification and other things around it, that you at least are quicker to market than when you start completely from scratch. Especially, for instance, take in the radio space. Most of these products now, they have some sort of a radio in it, for whatever. If you use a standardized product that has been used before, that has been certified as a module, that will actually work. Yeah. Those are more expensive, I know, but that saves you a lot of time that you can concentrate on what you really want to sell. Yeah, I see a lot of time that people really are working their ass off on getting the communication right and all that stuff. But communication is something many people have thought about for many years. Yeah, so that is there. But what these IoT companies want to do is to bring something new to the table. So concentrate on the thing that is new, that makes you unique. And then once the market starts buying it, and they will tell you, yeah, it's too expensive, then start optimizing the product. Yeah, in a second step. So that would be one advice. And the second advice is really don't think about the solution, but also think about how you're going to put it to market, because that will kill you. If you don't have your plan from day one, and you don't know what is needed to do that, that will in the end, will be the differentiator between success and non-success. How and who, especially, will help you to bring that product to market. And then try to find, but that's in my own league, of course, try to find a company that can also give you some advice, on how to come from the lab to serial production, which is also a long road many times. Those would be my first advice to, let's say, young companies that start doing and want to be, let's say, the next Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg or whoever they want to be. Yeah.
A couple of people have called it crossing the chasm from the kind of desk less than 100. Super easy for people to build by hand, and the designers to do it themselves. Completely different building something in the 1,000 to 5,000 range, and then a completely different approach again to be getting above the 10,000 and into the millions.
Yeah. Okay. My last advice for those people would be is use your mother. And when I sell that to my own people, engineers, they look at me and say, "What the hell are you meaning?" I said, "Well, in the old days when I was leading a team of 70 engineers, I used to come to the engineering center and they used to show me their newest invention. And the problem is many times a product are too complicated. And what I mean with that, if your mother doesn't understand it and cannot handle it within, let's say, a few hours, it's too complicated. You cannot sell it in large volume. Yeah. So it sounds silly, but many engineers cannot believe that somebody doesn't understand their, let's say, latest baby. And that has to do with keep it simple, make sure that people that have no clue of what you're doing even understand it. And I see that also a lot with young entrepreneurs that it's too complicated. It's just too complicated. Yeah. And those for me are sort of basic rules for a chance of success. A chance of success. Yeah.
That's a really nice piece of advice. Okay, if I can ask you then one final question just to finish off, and it's about then more the human aspect, you know, and also kind of this is asking you more as John the person rather than John the senior kind of executive. And the question is, what does success look like to you? And then kind of just how you would answer that question.
Success for me, success is success for me is being able to let's say be independent, that you can independently think about your next success. You know, and what I mean with that, it gives you, if you have success, it gives you ease of mind, and it also gives you the, let's say, the trust that you can repeat that again. Because I always say, if you have a unique product, you only have it for so long. I don't know anybody, not in the big companies, not in the small companies, that have a unique product that is really unique for longer than 9 months. So that means once you have tackled it and you have success, you should use, let's say, that momentum to build your next success. Yeah? And that for me is a great feeling. You know, if you have that success moment, that for me is the start of the new, let's say, the new venture to the new little piece of success. Yeah, and I have learned in my life there is no one-time success. There's only a few people, and mostly they win the lottery, that have a one-time big success in their life. So for me, success is not a one-time thing. A success is a accumulation of little successes. Yeah, and that gives you a great feeling because you should celebrate. That's what I do personally. You should celebrate all these small successes. Yeah, but if you start waiting on that one big success, you're only one of the few in this world that will reach it. Yeah, so I'm very, I've learned in my life. Yeah.
Thank you so much, John. We'll finish it there. Thank you.
Okay, take care.